She brought bread to the castle and accidentally made contact with the vampire king's son, a cursed prince who had not opened his eyes in 50 years. His heartbeat strengthened beneath her fingertips. What the delivery girl did not realize was that she carried the blood of the witch who had cursed him, and awakening him would demand everything from her. The storm arrived without warning. Lyra held the breadbasket close to her chest as rain pounded the dirt road into thick mud. Her threadbare shoes sank with every step, but she pressed onward. The castle servants required their delivery before nightfall, and she required the 3 copper coins they would pay her. 3 coins meant meals for her and her grandmother for 2 days. Lightning tore across the sky, and for an instant, Silverale Castle emerged like a shadowed crown against the mountains. Villagers whispered about that place. They claimed the vampire king resided there with a son who had not opened his eyes in 50 years. They claimed 1,000 physicians had attempted to wake the prince. Every one had failed. Lyra did not believe in curses. She believed in bread, rain, and reaching home before darkness fell. "You!" A guard's voice cut through the storm. "What are you doing out here?" Before Lyra could respond, his rough hand seized her arm and pulled her through the castle's side entrance. She stumbled, her basket flying from her grasp. Loaves of bread scattered across the cold marble floor. I'm delivering," but the guard was not listening. "Storm's worsening. Wait here until it passes." He vanished down a hallway, leaving her alone in a dim corridor. Lyra had never stepped inside the castle before. Servants typically met her at the kitchen door. This hallway was different. Quieter, colder. Candles flickered in silver holders, throwing shadows that seemed to breathe. The air carried the scent of ancient stone and something else, something resembling dried flowers and illness. She knelt to collect the scattered bread, her hands trembling from cold. That was when she heard it. A heartbeat, not hers, slower, weaker, emanating from behind a heavy wooden door to her left. "Don't be foolish," she told herself. "Gather the bread and leave." But her feet carried her toward the door regardless. It stood slightly ajar, just enough to glimpse inside. The chamber beyond was enormous. A bed occupied the center, draped in dark velvet curtains. And upon that bed lay a young man. Lyra's breath caught. He possessed a beauty like winter mornings, pale and untouchable. His skin held a gray tint like marble left in shadow. Dark hair spread across the pillow. His chest barely rose. This had to be him, Prince Caelin, the sleeping prince everyone whispered about. She should have departed. She should have gathered her bread and fled back to the village. Instead, she stepped inside. Up close, he appeared even more lifeless. His lips bore a blue tinge. The veins beneath his skin traced dark patterns like fractures in ice. Yet somehow, she could still hear that faint heartbeat. How could someone exist like this? Lyra's hand moved of its own accord. She reached out and touched his wrist, barely, checking for a pulse the way her grandmother had taught her. His skin was ice cold. But then, thump. The heartbeat beneath her fingertips grew stronger. Only slightly, but unmistakably stronger. Lyra jerked her hand back, eyes widening. Prince Caelin's chest rose with a deeper breath. His eyelids twitched. "What have you done?" Lyra whirled around. A man stood in the doorway, tall and sharp-featured, wearing black robes lined with silver. His eyes held the color of storms, gray and furious. "King Alaric." Lyra's voice died in her throat. She had heard tales about the vampire king's temper. Men had been executed for less than entering the prince's chamber uninvited. I didn't mean... The door was open." Words tumbled out uselessly, but the guard was not listening to her. He stared at his son. "Oren!" he shouted. Within seconds, an elderly man in physician's robes rushed in, followed by 3 guards. "My lord," the physician asked, breathless. "Check him," Caelin commanded. "Now." The physician moved to the bedside, placing fingers on Caelin's neck, then his wrist, then pressing an ear to his chest. The old man's eyes widened. "His pulse!" The physician's voice shook. "It's stronger! I don't understand. How is this possible?" King Alaric's gaze snapped back to Lyra. She pressed against the wall, attempting to disappear into the stone. "Who are you?" His voice was quieter now, which was somehow worse than shouting. I'm Lyra. Sir, my lord." Your Majesty, I delivered bread to the castle. I was just... The storm. I didn't touch anything, I swear. You touched him. It was not a question. Lyra's silence served as answer enough. The king moved forward in 3 long strides. Lyra flinched, but he walked past her to the bed. His hand, careful, gentle, smoothed back his son's hair. 50 years, Alaric whispered. 50 years I have searched. 1,000 doctors, witches, alchemists, blood magic, ancient spells, prayers to gods I do not believe in. He looked at Lyra, and she saw something unexpected in those storm-gray eyes. Hope. And a delivery girl finds him by accident. Another breath from Caelan, this one even deeper. His fingers twitched against the sheets. Orin, the king said, never taking his eyes off Lyra. Prepare the East Wing guest chamber. The girl stays here tonight. My lord, the physician sounded uncertain. She is not leaving this castle until I know what she is. Whatever you did, you will do it again. My son needs... His voice cracked slightly. He needs to wake. Lyra looked at the prince in the candlelight. She could see color slowly returning to his face, like dawn touching winter frost. What had she done? I am nobody, just a village girl. I cannot help him. You already have. King Alaric moved to the door, gesturing to a guard. Take her to the guest chamber, give her dry clothes and food, and post someone outside her door. To protect me or to imprison me? Lyra asked before she could stop herself. The king almost smiled. Almost. Both, he said. As guards led her away, Lyra glanced back one final time. The physician was checking Prince Caelan's vital signs again, writing notes frantically. And on the bed, the dying prince's chest rose and fell with something that resembled life. The storm outside howled against the castle walls. But inside, in a chamber that had been silent for 50 years, something impossible had just begun. Lyra did not sleep. The guest chamber was larger than her entire house. The bed had silk sheets that felt too smooth, too cold. Every shadow seemed to watch her. She sat by the window until dawn broke, painting the mountains in shades of gold and purple. A knock came just as the sun fully rose. The king requests your presence, a maid said through the door. Her voice was clipped, unfriendly. Lyra had been given a simple gray dress to replace her wet clothes. It was the finest thing she had ever worn, but when she entered the infirmary, the servants stared at her like she was dirt they had tracked inside. King Alaric stood beside his son's bed with physician Orin. Both men looked as though they had not slept either. Tell her, the king said. Orin cleared his throat, his hands clutching a notebook filled with scribbled notes. In 50 years, Prince Caelan's heartbeat has never exceeded 12 beats per minute. His breathing averaged 3 breaths per minute. He was alive, but barely. We termed it the long sleep. Last night, after you touched him, his heartbeat increased to 30 beats per minute. His breathing improved to 8 breaths per minute. This morning, it is even better.
Lyra stared at the prince. He did look different, less like a corpse. His skin held a hint of warmth now, a faint flush beneath the gray. I do not understand, she said. Honestly, I did nothing special. I simply touched his wrist. Do it again, Alaric ordered. Lyra's heart hammered. What if I make it worse? You will not. She did not know how he could be so certain, but she approached the bed regardless. Up close, she could see Prince Caelan's face more clearly. He appeared about 20, though she knew he had been asleep for 50 decades. Time had stopped for him the night the curse took hold. Slowly, carefully, Lyra placed her hand over his. The effect was immediate. Caelan's breathing deepened, the blue tint faded further from his lips, and then his fingers moved, just slightly, curling toward her palm like a flower turning toward sunlight. Orin gasped. Incredible! His body recognizes her presence. Alaric moved closer, his expression unreadable. Who are you really? I told you, I am just a delivery girl. Yes, I heard, but delivery girls do not wake dying princes. What is your family name? I do not have one. My parents died when I was small. I only have my grandmother, and she never speaks about our family. Lyra pulled her hand back, uncomfortable under his scrutiny. I am nobody important. Nobody important does not carry magic in their touch. I do not have magic. Frustration leaked into her voice. I cannot explain what happened. I wish I could. Before Alaric could respond, a sharp voice cut through the room. Your Majesty, surely you do not believe this peasant girl is special? A woman in expensive burgundy robes swept in, Lady Morvain, one of the king's advisors. Behind her, two other nobles whispered to each other, their eyes cold as they looked at Lyra. The physician confirmed what I saw, Alaric said flatly. Then she is using some trick, some village magic to deceive you. Perhaps she even caused the prince's condition to worsen first, so she could appear to heal him. That is not true, Lyra protested. Then what is your explanation, girl? Why would a common nothing like you succeed where 1,000 trained healers failed? Lyra had no answer. The truth was, she had no idea. Enough, Alaric said. Oren, continue monitoring the prince. Lady Morvain, you are dismissed. The noblewoman's face flushed with anger, but she left, taking the other courtiers with her. Their whispers echoed down the hallway. They hate me, Lyra said quietly. They fear you, Alaric corrected. Fear and hate often resemble each other. He gestured to a chair near the bed. Sit. Stay with him. For how long? As long as it takes. Hours passed. Lyra sat in that chair while servants came and went, bringing the king reports, delivering medicine that had not worked in 50 years, lighting new candles as old ones burned down. They all stared at her, some curious, most hostile. She felt like a mouse in a room full of cats. But when the room finally emptied, just for a moment, just long enough, Lyra leaned closer to the prince. I do not know what I'm supposed to do. Everyone thinks I'm special, but I am not. I am just frightened. She did not expect an answer, but then Kaelin's breathing changed, became softer, calmer, as though her voice soothed something deep inside him, and his eyes moved beneath his closed lids. Lyra's breath caught. Can you hear me? Another shift, then slowly, impossibly, his eyelids began to flutter. Lyra jumped to her feet. Someone, anyone, But the words died as Kaelin's eyes opened, just barely, just enough for her to see they were the color of twilight, deep blue fading into gray. He looked directly at her. His lips moved, forming a single silent word. She could not hear it. Then his eyes closed again, and he was still, but it was enough. 50 years of absolute silence, broken by one moment of consciousness. When Alaric returned minutes later, Lyra was shaking. He opened his eyes, she said. He saw me. The king's hand gripped the bedpost so tightly his knuckles went white. What did he say? I don't know. I couldn't hear it. But even as she spoke, Lyra realized something strange. That silent word had felt familiar, like something she should have understood, like he had been trying to say a name she had forgotten. 3 days passed. Lyra remained in the castle, spending hours beside Prince Kaelin. Each day he improved. His skin grew warmer, his heartbeat steadied. Once she swore she saw his finger twitch when she spoke about her village, but he did not open his eyes again. The courtiers grew bolder in their whispers. They called her deceiver. Lyra ate meals alone in her chamber. Even the servants who brought her food would not meet her eyes. On the 4th morning, a guard escorted her to the library. The chamber was massive, filled with ancient books that smelled like dust and secrets. King Alaric stood before a table covered in open grimoires, his face drawn with exhaustion. You have been researching, Lyra said quietly. For 3 nights. He did not look up. There has to be an explanation. Magic always has rules, patterns, origins. Lyra moved closer, glancing at the texts. Most were written in languages she did not recognize, but some had illustrations, strange symbols, family trees, drawings of fire and blood. Have you found anything? She asked. His jaw tightened. Perhaps. I pulled forward a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed and fragile. This belonged to Witch Seraphine. the one who cursed my family. Lyra's skin prickled. How did you acquire her diary? We found it in the ruins of her home after she died. I've read it 100 times, searching for a way to break the curse, but I never understood this passage until now. He read aloud, "The blood that burns will sleep eternal, until the child born of grief returns. She will carry both curse and cure, a mirror to the pain that must endure." A child born of grief, Lyra repeated softly. What does that mean? I thought it was poetry, metaphor. Alaric looked at her directly. But what if it was prophecy? Before Lyra could respond, Physician Oren hurried into the library carrying a wooden box. Your Majesty, I have prepared the testing instruments as requested. Testing? Lyra took a step back. What kind of testing? Your blood, Alaric said bluntly. I need to examine it. Fear shot through her. Why? Because everything supernatural leaves a trace. If you are connected to the curse, your blood will show it. Lyra's hands clenched. And if I refuse? Then my son continues dying, and you remain a prisoner. Alaric's voice softened slightly. I am not trying to hurt you, girl. I am trying to understand you. She had no choice. She knew that. Oren prepared a small knife, sterilized in alcohol. Just a drop, he said gently. It will only sting for a moment. Lyra held her hand out, trying not to shake. But as Oren reached for a glass vial on the table, his sleeve knocked against a broken goblet. The sharp edge sliced across Lyra's palm before anyone could react. She gasped, pulling her hand back. Blood welled up quickly, more than a drop, a bright red line across her skin. I'm sorry! Oren grabbed a cloth. Let me... Alaric had gone completely still. He stared at her blood where it had dropped onto an open page of Seraphine's diary. The blood began to glow, not brightly, just a faint shimmer like moonlight on water. The ink on the page beneath it seemed to move, rearranging itself into new words. Impossible! Oren breathed.
Alaric leaned closer, reading the new text. His face went pale. It is her, Seraphine's bloodline. Your blood carries the same signature as the curse. Oren was examining the glowing drops with fascination and horror. The same energy that infected Prince Kalen runs through your veins, but it is not poison in you. It is dormant, waiting. I do not understand, Lyra's voice came out small. How is that possible? Alaric looked at her with something like pity. You are her descendant. Seraphine's blood runs in your veins. The room spun. Lyra gripped the table's edge. No, that cannot be true. My grandmother would have told me. Would she? Alaric asked quietly. If she knew her family came from a witch who cursed the royal line, if she knew that connection could get you killed? Lyra's mind raced. Her grandmother never spoke about the past, never answered questions about Lyra's parents or where they had come from. She had always said, "The past is buried for a reason, child. Let it stay that way." The child born of grief, Oren murmured, reading the passage again. Seraphine died in fire, screaming curses. If she had a child before she died, that child would have carried her pain. Generation after generation, until me, Lyra whispered. Alaric closed the diary carefully. You are not just healing my son, you are completing what Seraphine started. The question is, are you meant to break the curse or finish it? That night, Lyra could not sleep again. She lay in the dark, her bandaged hand throbbing. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw things that were not her memories. Fire, so much fire, a crowd screaming for blood, hands tied to a wooden post, and a man, tall, noble, with cold eyes, turning away as the flames rose higher. You chose pride over love, so your son will choose nothing at all. He will sleep until grief itself returns to wake him. Lyra jolted awake, gasping. The voice had been so clear, so full of rage and pain. Seraphine's voice. She looked down at her palm. The cut had stopped bleeding, but in the moonlight, she could see something strange beneath her skin, faint marks like veins of light branching from the wound. They resembled the dark veins on Prince Camon's skin. Mirror images. Curse and cure. Lyra pressed her hand to her chest, feeling her own heartbeat racing. Somewhere in this castle, Prince Calon lay sleeping, bound to her by blood and magic and a witch's dying curse. And for the first time, Lyra wondered if waking him would save him or destroy them both. "You will stay with him every day, morning until night," King Alaric's command came the next morning. Lyra stood in the infirmary, still exhausted from her nightmares of fire and screaming. "But I do not know what to do," she protested weakly. "You do not need to do anything. Just be near him." Alaric looked at his son, and for the first time, Lyra saw past the king, to the father beneath. Whatever connection you share, it is working. He grows stronger every day you are here. So, Lyra became Prince Calon's constant companion. At first, she simply sat beside his bed, uncomfortable in the silence. The chamber felt too grand, too cold. But gradually she began to fill the emptiness the only way she knew how, with words. She told him about her village, about the baker who always gave her grandmother extra bread on cold mornings, about the river where children caught fish with their bare hands in summer, about the old oak tree everyone claimed was 300 years old. "You would like it there," she said softly one afternoon. "It is simple, quiet. No one expects anything from you except to be yourself." Calon's breathing changed when she spoke, became gentler, more rhythmic, as though her voice was a lullaby that eased whatever darkness held him. On the 5th day, his lips curved slightly, just the ghost of a smile. But it was there. Lyra's heart jumped. Can you hear me?" No response, but his hand, resting on the sheets, moved closer to where she sat. She began reading to him after that. The castle library had books she had never imagined, stories of distant lands, ancient heroes, impossible adventures. She stumbled over the difficult words, her village education showing, but she kept reading. And Calon kept responding, small movements, a finger twitch, a deeper breath. Once, when she read about a warrior returning home after a long war, a single tear slid down his cheek. "You are not just asleep, are you?" Lyra whispered, touching the tear away. "You are trapped." That night, she sang to him, the old lullabies her grandmother had sung when Lyra was small. Simple melodies about stars and safety and coming home. Her voice was not beautiful, but it was warm, and it was real. Calon's eyes moved rapidly under his closed eyes, like he was dreaming. "Sleep now, little one, the darkness fades away. Morning always follows night, and night will follow day." Lyra sang softly. His lips moved, forming soundless words along with hers. He knew the song. But how? The door opened quietly. King Alaric stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Lyra's voice faltered. "Do not stop. I have not heard that song in decades." Lyra finished the lullaby, her voice barely above a whisper. When the last note faded, Alaric moved to his son's bedside. "His mother used to sing that," the king said quietly, "before the curse. Before she—" He did not finish. "I am sorry," Lyra said, not knowing what else to say. "Do not be." Alaric placed a hand on his son's shoulder, a rare gesture of tenderness. "You are giving him back pieces I thought were lost forever." But not everyone saw it that way. In the hallways, the whispers grew louder. Servants stopped talking when Lyra passed. Courtiers glared openly. Lady Morvaine's voice echoed from the council chamber one evening as Lyra walked by. "The king kneels before a peasant, while his son wastes away under her spell. She has bewitched them both." Another voice agreed. How else could a common girl succeed where trained physicians failed? Lyra pressed herself against the wall, heart pounding. She wanted to scream that she had not asked for any of this, that she was just as confused as they were. Instead, she returned to Kalen's chamber and locked the door behind her. "They think I am using magic on you," she told him. "They think I am dangerous." Kalen's hand moved across the sheets, fingers stretching toward her voice. Lyra took his hand gently. His skin was warm now, no longer deathly cold. His pulse beat steady and strong beneath her fingertips. "I am not, though," she continued. "I am just here, talking to someone who can't talk back." She laughed bitterly. "Perhaps I am mad." Kalen's hand squeezed hers, weakly but deliberately. Lyra froze. "You can hear me? You truly can hear me?" Another squeeze, stronger this time. Tears burned her eyes. "I am here. I am not going anywhere. Promised. You promised," she whispered, the word cracking. "You promised." "What did I promise?" Lyra asked desperately. But Kalen had gone still again, exhausted by the effort. His breathing remained steady, peaceful, but Lyra saw something new in his face. Determination, as though something inside him was fighting to wake, to break free. She stayed with him all night, holding his hand, singing every lullaby she knew. The candles burned low, the moon traced patterns across the floor, and somewhere in the castle, in dark corners and jealous hearts, plots were beginning to form. Because a peasant girl who could heal a cursed prince with nothing but kindness was either a miracle or a threat that needed to be eliminated.
The dreams grew worse. Every night, fire. Every night, screaming. And every night, Lyra woke with the taste of smoke in her mouth and tears on her face. She began exploring the castle during the hours when sleep was impossible. The guards had grown accustomed to her presence, and no one stopped her as she wandered the empty corridors in the dead of night. That was how she found the old wing, a section of the castle that had been sealed off, its entrance hidden behind a tapestry. The door was not locked, just forgotten. Lyra pushed it open, and dust swirled in the moonlight, streaming through broken windows. The chambers beyond were ruins, furniture covered in sheets, portraits with faces scratched out. And at the end of a long hallway, a chamber that made her heart stop. It had been a study once. Books lined the walls, their pages brittle with age. But what caught Lyra's attention was the painting above the fireplace. A woman with dark hair and eyes like winter storms, beautiful, fierce, and somehow familiar. Beneath the painting, someone had carved words into the mantel. Seraphine, beloved and betrayed. You should not be here. Lyra spun around. King Alaric stood in the doorway, holding a candle. His face was drawn, ancient in the flickering light. I am sorry. I did not mean to. This was her chamber, Alaric said quietly, moving inside, before everything fell apart. Lyra looked at the portrait again. She was beautiful. She was brilliant. Alaric stood beside her, staring up at Seraphine's painted face. A healer, an herbalist. My great-great-grandfather, King Aldric, consulted her when the plague came. She saved hundreds of lives. Then why did she curse his bloodline? Alaric was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy with old shame. Because Aldric fell in love with her, and she with him. He gave her these rooms, promised to make her his queen. For 2 years, they were inseparable. What happened? Lyra asked, though part of her already knew. The nobles discovered them. They were horrified. A king marrying a commoner. A woman who practiced magic. Alaric's jaw tightened. They threatened rebellion. Civil war. So Aldric, he closed his eyes. He chose his throne over her heart. Lyra's chest ached. He left her. Worse. When she would not leave the castle quietly, when she demanded he honor his promises, the nobles accused her of witchcraft, of using dark magic to seduce the king. Alaric's voice dropped to a whisper. Aldric did not defend her. He let them take her. Let them put her on trial. The dream suddenly made horrible sense. The fire, the screaming, the man turning away. They burned her.
Lyra breathed. In the village square, in front of everyone, Alaric watched from the castle walls, and as the flames rose, Seraphine spoke her final words, not begging for mercy, but cursing the bloodline that chose pride over love. Lyra moved to the desk, where journals lay scattered. She opened one carefully, and Seraphine's handwriting flowed across the pages. Recipes for medicines, notes on healing herbs, and scattered between them, love letters never sent. Aldrich came to me again tonight. He says he cannot sleep without me near. He says when he is king, things will be different. I want to believe him. Oh gods, I want to believe him. Lyra turned pages, watching hope turn to desperation. The nobles know. They are demanding he end this. He swears he will not. He swears his love is stronger than their hate. I am afraid. And finally, in handwriting that shook with rage, he stood there while they chained me, while they read the charges, while they lit the kindling. He could have stopped it with a word, one word, but he chose silence, chose his crown. So I choose this. His bloodline will know the pain of loving someone they cannot reach. They will watch their children sleep, unable to wake, unable to live, until grief itself returns to break what pride has built. Beneath the entry, one final line. I was with child. He does not know. Let her carry both my love and my vengeance forward. Lyra's hands trembled. She was pregnant. We discovered that entry only recently, Alaric admitted. The child survived a daughter, raised in secret by Seraphine's sister. And that daughter had children, and those children had children. He looked at Lyra meaningfully. Until you. So I am here to finish what she started, to watch Kaelin die, to make you suffer the way Aldrich made her suffer. Or, Alaric said carefully, to choose differently than she did, to choose forgiveness over vengeance. Lyra laughed bitterly. How can I forgive what was done to her? She loved him, she trusted him, and he let her burn. I know, Alaric's voice cracked. And Kaelin has paid for that betrayal every day of his cursed life, a child punished for his ancestors' sins. Lyra closed the journal, but Seraphine's words echoed in her mind. The weight of inherited pain pressed down on her shoulders, 50 years of rage, of betrayal, of a love that turned to ash. I do not know what I am supposed to do, she whispered. Neither do I, Alaric admitted. But I know my son is dying and you are the only one who can save him. He paused. Or destroy him. The choice was always meant to be yours. He left her alone in that chamber full of ghosts. Lyra sank into a chair, surrounded by Seraphine's belongings. She could feel the witch's presence here, her pain soaked into the walls. And underneath it all, she felt something else, a question waiting to be answered. Vengeance or mercy? Destruction or redemption? The curse had been born from betrayed love. The only question was, what would break it? Lyra returned to Kaelin's chamber as dawn broke, exhausted from the night in Seraphine's room. But when she saw him, her fatigue vanished, replaced by cold terror. He was worse. Dark veins crawled across his skin like black lightning, up his neck, across his face, spreading with each labored breath. His skin had turned gray again, the warmth she had worked so hard to restore, draining away. No, no, no! Lyra grabbed his hand. It was ice cold. Physician Oren rushed in, his face pale. It started an hour ago. The curse is fighting back. Why? Lyra demanded. He was getting better. I do not know. It is as though something triggered it. Oren checked his pulse, his expression grim. His heartbeat is slowing again. We are losing him. King Alaric appeared in the doorway, and for the first time since Lyra had met him, he looked broken. How long does he have? Hours, maybe less. Lyra pressed Kaelin's hand to her cheek. He was slipping away, pulled back into that dark sleep. Fight, please fight. But his breathing grew shallower. The dark veins spread further. There has to be something we can do. Lyra looked desperately at Oren, at Alaric. Medicine? Magic? Anything? I have tried everything, Alaric said quietly. For 50 years, I have tried everything. And suddenly, standing in that chamber, Lyra understood. The curse was not just magic. It was emotion, rage, betrayal, grief frozen into something that fed on itself. Seraphine had not just cursed the bloodline, she had cursed them to feel what she felt, helpless, watching someone they loved slip away, unable to reach them, unable to save them. And every day that Alaric carried his ancestors' guilt, every day he could not forgive what had been done, the curse grew stronger. "It's not medicine he needs," Lyra said slowly. "It's not magic either." "Then what?" Alaric asked.
Lyra stood, turning to face the king. She is still here, Seraphine. Her pain is still alive in this curse. And you, her voice grew stronger, you carry Aldric's guilt. You have been punishing yourself for what he did for 50 years. I am not Aldric. But you have never forgiven him, have you? Lyra stepped closer. You have hated him for what he did, hated yourself for carrying his blood. That guilt, that self-hatred, it feeds the curse, it keeps it alive. Alaric's face twisted. He let the woman he loved burn. How can I forgive that? Because your son is dying for it. Lyra's voice cracked. Do you not see? The curse feeds on hate, on unforgiveness, on grief that will not let go. Tears streamed down her face. Your guilt keeps him trapped. I do not know how, Alaric whispered. I do not know how to let it go. Behind them, Kaelin gasped, a terrible rattling sound. The dark veins reached his eyes now, spreading like cracks in porcelain. We are out of time, Orin said urgently. Lyra made a decision. Take him to the rooftop, now. What? Alaric stared at her. The highest point of the castle, where he can see the sky. Lyra's voice shook, but held firm. If we are going to break this curse, it has to be where the air is clear, where there is nothing between him and the moon. They carried Kaelin up winding staircases, through forgotten corridors, until they emerged onto the castle's highest tower. The night sky stretched infinite above them, stars scattered like diamonds. And there, climbing over the mountains, a lunar eclipse was beginning, the moon slowly turning blood red. Perfect, Lyra breathed. Endings and beginnings. They laid Kaelin on the stone floor. His breathing was barely visible now. The dark veins covered almost every inch of his skin. Lyra knelt beside him, then looked up at King Alaric. I need you to do something harder than any battle you have ever fought. Anything. Forgive him. Lyra's voice was gentle now. Forgive Aldric. Forgive yourself. Let go of the guilt you have carried. Let go of the hate. Her voice broke. I cannot. He destroyed. He was weak. He was human. He made a terrible choice. Lyra took the king's hand, placed it on his son's chest. But Kaelin does not deserve to pay for it anymore, and neither do you. The eclipse was almost complete. The moon glowed crimson above them. Alaric looked down at his son, at the boy who had slept for 50 years, caught between life and death because of a love betrayed generations ago. And for the first time since the curse began, the king wept. I am sorry, he choked out. Aldric, Seraphine, I am so sorry for what was done to you, for the choice that never should have been made. His tears fell on Kaelin's face. I forgive you. I forgive myself. And I am begging, let my son go. The dark veins flickered. Lyra placed her hands over Kaelin's heart and felt something inside her break open. All of Seraphine's pain, all the inherited rage flowing out of her like water from a broken dam. I forgive you too, she whispered, not knowing if she was speaking to Aldric or Seraphine or the curse itself. I choose mercy. I choose to let go. The dark veins began to recede, slowly at first, then faster. The eclipse reached totality, the moon completely red, and Lyra felt her own energy draining away, pulled into the space where the curse had been. The inherited pain was leaving her, but it was taking pieces of her with it. Lyra! Alaric's voice sounded distant. Her vision blurred. Her hands grew cold.
She was fading, becoming as insubstantial as morning mist. But beneath her hands, Kaylin's heartbeat grew stronger. And the last thing she saw before darkness took her was his eyes opening, clear, bright, and finally free. Lyra woke in the castle chapel. She did not remember being carried there, did not remember the eclipse ending or the sun rising. Her body felt hollow, as though something essential had been carved out and replaced with air. "Easy," Physician Oren said, helping her sit up. "You have collapsed on the rooftop. You have been unconscious for hours." "Kaylin," the name came automatically, though her voice was weak. "Alive, resting. The dark veins are gone." Oren's eyes were kind. "Whatever you did, it worked. The curse is weakening." "Weakening," Lyra repeated. "Not broken?" Oren hesitated. "Not yet. He is stable, but still asleep. Still trapped, just less so." Lyra looked around the chapel. It was a small, quiet space. Stone walls lined with candles, a simple altar, stained glass windows casting colored light across the floor. Something about this place felt right, felt necessary. She said, "Leave me here," softly. "The king ordered?" "Please," she met his eyes. "I know what I need to do now, but I need to do it alone." Oren studied her face, then nodded slowly. "I will be outside if you need anything." When the door closed, Lyra stood on shaking legs. Her body felt strange, lighter somehow, as though gravity had loosened its hold. She moved to the altar, where dozens of candles waited in brass holders. She began lighting them one by one, each flame a small prayer, a small release. Words came to her, not from books, not from lessons, but from somewhere deeper, from dreams, from Seraphine's memories woven into her blood. "By fire begun, by fire released. What grief has bound, let love make peace." The air in the chapel grew warmer. The candle flames bent toward her as though listening. Lyra did not understand what was happening. She only knew it felt right, like finally remembering something she had always known. The child returns, the circle closes, let bitter roots give way to roses. Behind her, the chapel door opened. King Alaric entered, supporting Kaylin between himself and two guards. The prince was awake, barely, his eyes half open, his movements weak but deliberate. "I am going to finish this," Lyra told them. "Whatever happens, do not stop me." She returned to the altar, lighting the final candles until the chapel blazed with golden light. Then she knelt before Kaylin, taking his cold hands in hers. The words came faster now, ancient and powerful. "Blood calls to blood across the years. Love betrayed becomes our tears. But tears can wash away the pain, and grief can choose to love again." Kaylin's hands warmed in hers. Color slowly returned to his face. Real color, not the false warmth of fever, but the healthy flush of living flesh. "I carry what was never mine, the witch's rage, the victim's crime." She placed her palm over his heart and felt something inside her break open. All of Seraphine's pain, all the inherited rage flowing out of her like water from a broken dam. "But I am not her. He is not him. Let old wounds heal. Let new life begin." Tears streamed down her face. She could feel it happening, the memories draining away. Not just the memories of the curse, but everything. Her name, her grandmother, the village, the castle, the boys whose life she touched. Everything that made her her was dissolving like sugar in water. "Lyra, wait!" Alaric started forward, seeing what was happening. But Kaylin's hand gripped hers tighter. His eyes were fully open now, clear and aware, holding understanding. He knew what this would cost, and his expression said what his voice could not. "Thank you. I am sorry. I wish it could be different." "The curse breaks here," Lyra whispered, her voice fading. "The pain released. Let sleep become waking. Let chains become peace." The final word left her lips, and the chapel blazed with light, every candle flaring brilliant white. The warmth was not fire anymore. It was pure release, pure forgiveness, washing away 50 years of inherited suffering. Kayleen gasped, his back arching. The last traces of dark veins evaporated from his skin like morning dew under sunlight. His chest rose and fell with deep, full breaths, the breathing of someone truly alive. And then he sat up, fully, completely. For the first time in 50 years, Prince Kayleen was awake. "Father?" His voice was rough from disuse, but strong, real. Alaric made a sound between a laugh and a sob, pulling his son into his arms. "Yes, yes, I am here. You are awake. You are finally awake." Kayleen held his father, but his eyes searched the chapel. They found Lyra, still kneeling, her hands empty now. He pulled away from Alaric and knelt before her. "You kept your promise," he said softly, desperately. "You said you would not leave me. You said—" Lyra looked at him with kind, confused eyes. "I am sorry. Do I know you?" The words shattered something in Kayleen's expression. You do not remember?" "Remember what?" Lyra glanced around the chapel, at the candles, at the king's tear-stained face. "I don't know. Where am I? How did I get here?" "Your name," Alaric said urgently, stepping closer. "Do you remember your name?" Lyra frowned, searching for the answer. It felt like reaching into fog. I think," her voice grew small. "I do not know." Kayleen took her hands in his, voice breaking. "You are Lyra. You saved my life. You stayed with me. You sang to me. You—" He stopped, seeing the complete blankness in her eyes. She had given everything to break the curse, including herself. "I am sorry," Lyra said again, pulling her hands back gently. "I do not remember any of that." But even as she spoke, something flickered across her face. Not memory exactly, just a feeling, a warmth that had no source, a sense that something important had just ended and something else was about to begin. Spring came to the river village with wildflowers and warm winds. Lyra, though she had to have been told that was her name, tended her small herb shop near the water's edge. The villagers said she had appeared 6 months ago, confused and alone, with no memory of where she had come from. The local healer, an old woman named Mira, had taken her in and taught her the trade. Lyra proved to have a natural gift for it. Plants thrived under her touch. Sick villagers recovered faster when she prepared their remedies. She could not explain it, just as she could not explain the strange dreams she sometimes had, of castles and candlelight, and a voice calling her name through darkness. Just dreams, she told herself each morning, nothing more. Her shop was simple, dried herbs hanging from the ceiling, clay pots of salves lined on shelves, a small table where she prepared tinctures. It smelled like lavender and chamomile and earth. She found peace here, even if she could not remember ever knowing peace before. The door chime rang one morning, and Lyra looked up from grinding medicinal roots. A young man stood in the doorway, dressed in simple traveler's clothes, good quality, but worn, as though he had been on the road for weeks. He was handsome in an unusual way, with dark hair and eyes the color of twilight. Something about him made her heart skip, though she could not say why. "Can I help you?" she asked, setting down her mortar and pestle. He held out a wilted flower, a night-blooming jasmine, its white petals brown and curling. "I was told you might be able to save this." Lyra took the flower carefully. "It is very sick. Why is it so important?" The young man's expression was hard to read. "It was a gift from someone I cannot forget." Something in his voice made me look up sharply. He was watching me with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow was not. Like he was memorizing her face, like he had been searching for her across mountains and time. "I can try," Lyra said softly, "but some things, once they start dying, cannot be brought all the way back. They become something different instead." "Different" is not the same as lost, he replied. She took the jasmine to her work table and began preparing a mixture: water, honey, a tincture she had developed that seemed to work on dying plants. Her hands moved with practiced certainty, though part of her felt as though she had done this before, in another life. "You are very skilled," the young man said, watching her work. "Mira taught me well," Lyra admitted, "though sometimes it feels as though I already knew how, like I'm just remembering." "Perhaps you are." She glanced at him. "Have we met before?" He smiled sadly. "In a way." Lyra wanted to press further, but something stopped her. Instead, she said, "The flower needs time. Come back tomorrow." "I will." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you happy here?" The question surprised her. Lyra looked around her small shop, at the herbs and remedies, at the simple life she had built from nothing. "I think so. I don't remember much before coming here, but—" She touched her chest, where her heart beat steady and strong. "I feel lighter now, like something heavy that I carried for a long time finally broke free." The young man's eyes glistened. "Good. That is good." He left without giving his name. That night, Lyra dreamed of singing, of a voice joining hers in an old lullaby, of hands warming under her touch. She woke with tears on her cheeks and could not understand why. The next morning, the young man returned. The jasmine had revived. Not completely, but enough. New green shoots emerged from the stem. The petals, while still fragile, had regained some of their white color. "It is not perfect," Lyra admitted, "but it is alive. It is fighting." The young man took the flower with reverent care. "You once brought life back to something that had forgotten how to live." The words settled over Lyra like a familiar melody. Her breath caught. "Why does that sound as though you are not speaking about the flower?" "Perhaps I am not." He reached into his pocket and placed 3 copper coins on her table, far more than the service was worth. "That is too much." "It is exactly right." He smiled at her, and it was the saddest, most beautiful smile she had ever seen. "Thank you, Lyra, for everything." He turned to leave, and sunlight streaming through the window caught his profile. For just a moment, she saw him differently, not as a traveler, but as someone royal, someone important, someone who had once needed her desperately. "Wait," she called. "What is your name?"
He paused in the doorway. "Kaylin." The name resonated in her chest like a bell. "Will you come back?" "Would you want me to?" Lyra did not understand the hope in his voice, but she knew her answer. "Yes, I think I would." Kaylin smiled, transformed into something genuine, something that held the promise of new beginnings. "Then I will, as many times as you will let me." After he left, Lyra returned to her work, but when she reached for her mortar, she noticed something strange. On her wrist, where sunlight touched her skin, there was a faint mark like a scar, but glowing softly, like silver thread under morning light. She traced it with her finger, and warmth spread through her. Not memory, exactly, just a feeling. A certainty that she had done something important, something that mattered. And though she could not remember the castle, the curse, or the 50 years of sleep she had helped break, she knew one truth with absolute clarity. She had loved someone once, loved them enough to give everything, and perhaps in time she could learn to love them again. Outside, spring continued its work, turning winter's death into new life, transforming endings into beginnings, proving that some things, once broken, could be beautifully remade. The curse was gone, the grief released, and 2 souls, freed from the weight of the past,
had been given the rarest gift of all, a chance to start over.